Hey, this is Dice Kimura, Miami guitar teacher, and today I'm talking to you about vacuum tubes that are used in a tube amp. I play a lot of different tubes, and I'm having a problem with one of my tubes, and I'm going to solve the problem and also talk about it here on the video because some of you out there might be having a similar situation. So the amp in question, let me just adjust the camera. You're looking at the back of my Fender amp. It used to be a Blues Junior, but I had a guy named Bill McCrone mod it, and so now it runs at 30 watts at 6L6s, and it used to run at 15 watts with EL84s. But that's not the issue right now. The issue I'm having is the tubes are getting burnt out, and I'm getting some microphonic noise, which means when I'm playing it, you can hear like some static and some glitching. And what I was about to do was to do an old trick, which was swap the V1 tube with the V3 tube. And then I thought to myself, let me just pull out a camera real quick and make a video, because this is actually, it's an old timer roadie trick, and a lot of you would benefit from knowing how to do that. So the reason I'm doing that is because I can get a lot more life out of my tubes. So what am I talking about here? Let me show you close up the back of my amp, if I can just train the camera on there. Okay, here's the back of my amp, and these are the two 606 power tubes, and then here is the V1 tube. And actually, these two other tubes were in there as well. So you have V1, V2, and V3. Okay, so when I pulled the tube, I noticed, so I'm just pull this tube. I pulled the tube, and let me see here. This one, these are both 12AX7s. This one was the V1 tube, and this one was the V3 tube. Now I inserted both of these tubes brand new at the exact same time, and you can see how much more wear and tear this tube has gotten in the V1 position. How do you know by looking at it that it's worn out, you ask? Look at how much silicone has burned away. It used to be all the way down here when these tubes are new, and this much has burned away, and this one has this much of the silicone casing remaining. This actually, when this is gone, that's when you get all the noise that you start hearing, like tube noise and stuff. So all I'm going to do is, these two tubes are in the V1 amp, the V1 and the V3, and I'm just going to switch them. Okay. While I was at it, I was curious to see what the V2 position looked like, and I was shocked to see that the V2 position had even less silicone than the V1. If you can see that in the camera, hopefully it's focusing. But I can't swap this one out because this is a JJECC832 tube, not quite a 12AX7. So I bought another one on Amazon. It's on the way. But these are your regular 12AX7 tubes. If you're wondering, I use TAD tubes. TAD is Tube Amp Doctor. Excellent tubes, German tubes, and that's what I prefer. Okay, if I can't get TADs, I'll use JJ Golds. I don't tend to like the regular JJs or the groove tubes, even though a lot of players that I respect use the JJs. So I'm just going to pop this one with the most silicone in the V1 position, and notice that my amp is off, and these tubes are cold. That's why I can handle them with impunity. If these tubes get red hot, as some of you might know. So I'm just putting in the V3 position, and it should be fine. But while I'm at it, I could take a look at my power tubes, and I've been meaning to change these power tubes. Now, power tubes tend to last twice as long as your preamp tubes. So your preamp tubes are the little tubes like the 12AX7, and this is a 6L6 power tube. And my power tube actually looks pretty good, looks pretty healthy, even though I bought two new ones. Now these are a pain to switch because you can't just swap them. You're going to have to calibrate the tube in terms of regulating the power. The reason why you do that is you could have one tube burn out and the other one not burn evenly. Okay, so just like tires, you might need to go in and rotate your tubes. That's an old trick, and if you rotate the V1 and the V3 positions, or some of you, if you're using an amp like a super reverb where you have V1, well, you have V1, V2, and V3, but you might have all the way V4 and V5. So you could switch V1 with V5 or V4, depending on your amp. Make sure that they're the same exact tube. I'm a big Fender fan, and they often have, they're not always the 12AX7s in the preamp tubes. Okay, so that's just a little demo that I'm making today for you about tubes. If you have questions or comments, comment on. I'll try to answer all the comments or questions. And it's just an old trick. I'm gonna have to swap these tubes pretty soon anyway, but I'll probably get another 6 months of life out of them. I use them about 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so they get plenty of action. But that should give me a couple more months of life. Okay, that's all I got for now. Thanks. Bye-bye.